I'm Nicholas Bornodis, President of Capital Inc., and I am delighted that I have the opportunity to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Martin Stopford. Martin is so well known and respected in the global maritime industry, and we are sincerely privileged to have him with us. Martin has agreed to share his insight on a very interesting and critical topic for the industry, technology and shipping, smart shipping. And again, thank you, Martin, for being with us. I am turning the floor over to you, and thank you very much.
Nicholas, thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I just love the background of Shanghai. It makes me feel as though I'm with you there. Of course you aren't there, but this is virtual conferencing, isn't it? Nicholas, talking to the audience now, hi guys. Nicholas offered me a choice of topic, and what I chose was, as a title, was how smart is smart shipping as an investment, because I thought you guys are in the investment business, and I've noticed recently that a lot of investors are feeling a little bit uncomfortable about investing in new ships, and I think that they are very right to feel this way. And so what I want to do is spend just 15 or 20 minutes running through some of the issues which have come into my mind. And interestingly, quite by coincidence, it is 5 years to the day since I did my Onassis Prize lecture on smart shipping. And so I pulled out the slides and had a look at them. And I find that the principle, I think I understand the detail a lot better than I did then. And that's helped me to reach some more specific conclusions about what you ought to do. And these are the things that I want to share with you in my slides. So if I can just get started now, we can get going. And so, how smart is smart shipping as an investment? Well, I want to cover 4 points here. But before I do that, let me just explain this rather elegant ship to you. This is the Savannah, which was a nuclear ship built in the late 1950s in the United States. And it was a cargo liner, and a beautiful, as you see, a very lovely ship, a futuristic design with two nuclear reactors in the back here. And it was 9,900 deadweight cargo liner. And the point that I really want to make by showing you this is that as a ship, it worked extremely well. It was safe, it was reliable. But unfortunately, if you went to buy a 9,500 ton cargo ship from a shipyard, it would cost you about $0.65 million, whereas the Savannah cost $43 million, and it was the price tag that put it out of the business. And that really is a point that I want to make about, right at the beginning, about autonomous ships. We know we can build an autonomous ship, just like we know we can build a nuclear cargo liner. But really, we're not in the business of, sort of putting a man on the moon. We're in the business of moving cargo better. And I think this is where the correct focus is smart shipping. For general purpose cargo distribution is smart shipping, not autonomy. And so I want to basically 4 points with you this afternoon. First of all, marine technology needs new solutions. I think that what is driving us towards the smart shipping philosophy is the fact that the technology is not really adding very much to the industry nowadays. We've used up the data, the bank of what we had already available. The second point is that digital technology will lead to a better business model. It can lead to a better business model. And so we're looking, the cupboard isn't empty, there is something in there. The third point is that smart shipping is about organization, not about ships. And that's really where I would like to focus. We all love to talk about ships, and it's very easy to talk about the technology on the ships. But really, when we talk about digital technology, we're talking about organizing the people who are really smart. And the smart component in a modern shipping company is not going to be the digital technology on the ship. It's going to be the teams that operate those ships. And so that's my sort of lineup. And let me start right away with the need for new solutions. The maritime industry has been around for a long time. This chart shows you the way freight rates have developed since 1750, believe it or not. And you see at the end of the sailing ship era, the freight rates were going up. They were short of technology, same as today. You know, the ships they're great ships, they're getting a bit bigger, but they were not really much better. Then along came the Industrial Revolution, steam ships, and we had liners and tramps, which were bigger ships, more, and they were able to substantially reduce their costs. And you see how the freight rates went steadily down until the end of the 1920s. And then we get a little bit of interregnum in the recession and the Second World War, and we come to the 1950s when there was another revolution, and shipbuilders learned how to build very big ships and much more cheaply, and the specialization replaced the liners and tramps, which were small, highly flexible ships. And today, since the 1980s, we have seen for the first time in 150 years, the trend has not been going down. It remained pretty static in the 90s, and it's been going up since then. And so that basically is my evidence to say that the shipping industry is looking for something new to add to its product portfolio in order to make it a better business, and smart shipping can do that. Let's go to my second point, which is just to give you the nuts and bolts of smart shipping. In fact, digital technology and networks is not new. It's in the shipping industry, started working, believe it or not, with digital networks back in the 1850s when the first cables were laid across the Atlantic. And this was a truly a networking experience. I mean, I know one of the things that really impressed me about the smart technology was when Uber would, you could order your cab in the restaurant, you're sitting in the restaurant, you order your cab to take you home after dinner, and with Uber, it arrives immediately, whereas previously you had to order the cab half an hour ahead of time so the guy could drive from your local cab rank and pick you up. And in fact, Uber had something that the other cab drivers didn't have. It knew there was a cab sitting right outside your door. And you know, the shipping industry was doing that 150 years ago. I mean, Clarkson's 150 years ago was like a sort of 19th century Uber. Their super brokers would have an owner with a ship that they needed to a cargo for. The ship would be sitting in the middle of nowhere with no cargo in sight. The Clarkson broker would head down to the Baltic Exchange, and very soon he'd meet an agent with a cargo somewhere near to the loading, in a viable loading point. They'd negotiate the deal, shake on it, and the broker would rush back to the office and send a telegram instructing the master of the ship to pick up the cargo. And you really have a real network operation driven by people. And interestingly, just as evidence of how important that was, in 1874, I think Clarkson spent more money on telegrams than it did on wages, believe it or not. But then, I mean, I think probably brokers didn't earn as much in those days, I don't know. Anyway, But back to the key points, doesn't get bogged down. Digital technology took another step forward in the 1970s and 80s as we started to get satellite communications. We'd had radio, but satellite communications made it possible for ships to communicate a bit better, but it was still fairly clunky. And in the mid-60s, mainframe computers appeared. As you can see, this is the CDC 6600, the first supercomputer, had a clock speed of 10 megahertz and 980K of memory, believe it or not. It cost $7 million. I actually wrote my first computer program on this particular model, not in 1965, but a little bit later. This whole process just expanded through as integrated circuit boards got cheaper and cheaper and smaller, so that we got mobile laptops, we got smartphones, and now we have microprocessors. And these microprocessors, microcontrollers, are complete computers effectively. They have input, output, they have processors, they have storage, they have memory, and they are actually, this particular microcontroller, which is a rather fancy one, is considerably more powerful than this computer. But it costs, I believe it costs about $1. I think this is perhaps a little bit more than $1, but those are the sort of prices that you're into. And suddenly you can pop these microcontrollers into anything, and that means that the Internet of Things became possible. You put one of these chips into your coffee pot and you can call it on the way home and tell it to start making coffee, which it does. It's not smart enough to go to the cupboard and get the coffee out if you forgot to put it in, but it's pretty good. And the same sort of process followed on in industry, very much the same time, the I4 revolution, which is the technology revolution in industry, where you start to put these microprocessors into equipment in factories, and you do jobs that were previously done manually, and you control processes much more fastidiously. And of course, this was a terrific thing because it meant that quality systems started to work, because in order to sort of automate these processes with microcontrollers, you had to actually define them very precisely, and that's exactly, and correct any errors. And so that's exactly the way that you can build quality assurance systems, by putting additional bits and pieces into the algorithms running these processes. And we are now approaching the stage where shipping can do this thanks to the satellites. And we've got, first of all, I4 devices here, which include the satellites, of course, the cheap microcontrollers, smart sensors, which don't just send information, they process it, they make it more relevant, they tell other people, other bits of the ship about it. Smart actuators, which switch machines on and off, but they also do lots of other things like check that the machine isn't jammed, look for power spikes, that sort of thing. And artificial intelligence, which strings them together and does whole processes very efficiently. These are the things, the hardware of the system, but these bits and pieces need to communicate. They need networks, and you need to have networks. You need unique identifiers. Ideally, you have protocols. You have smart apps, voice and touch interfaces. These are all things that you need to do effectively in order to make the whole process work smoothly. And these are going to be very challenging. I can't disguise that fact. It's not going to happen overnight. But one way or the other, just like containerization, it will happen. It was painful, but it will happen eventually. And what we're talking about is I4 on ships. And what we're going to do is bring the ships together with the people and make the whole thing work properly. Just a final little note on this one. one of the reasons why I'm a big believer in this is the way the satellite network is expanding. I mean, this is one of Inmarsat's slides. At the moment, they've got 4 of these geostationary satellites in place, which are massively more effective and more productive than their predecessors. They can focus the beams and do all sorts of clever stuff. But look what they've got ahead of them. There's a whole string of satellites coming in the next 2 or 3 years. And so Ronald Speter, the president of Inmarsat, says each of these new satellites is more powerful than all the previous ones they've been putting up. It's just escalating, and they have lots of clever features. So I think, you know, you need to do your own homework, but I think that, you know, communication is changing. And this brings me on to my third key point, which is smart shipping is about organization, not ships. We love ships dearly, but business is about organizing things. And this is where smart shipping will be if we follow what land transport industries have already done. We start off with using assets more efficiently. And so the first thing is that we integrate functional systems to improve QA, maintenance and performance. If you do those things, I mean, I worked in industry for a long time, and it really makes a massive difference when your QA systems click into place. Suddenly the world changes and your costs go down in ways that you never dreamt was possible. Secondly, you manage shipshore personnel into a single, more productive team. They don't hate each other. They're actually part of the same team. You know, if one wins, they all win. That is a big step, but it's possible when they can all talk to each other anytime, just like we're talking to each other digitally now, or at least actually this is a monologue, isn't it? So I wish I could talk to you. The third step is develop control networks to cut costs and improve management systems. The car industry did this. You replace wires, masses of wires. The more of these bits of kit, these little controllers you put on the ship, the more wires there will be. So you don't communicate by wires, you communicate by a central control network along which you send messages, and you can put as many messages as you like. It gives you enormous flexibility to do things that you couldn't do before, and you at the same time generate a ton of information which you use to find ways to improve performance and reduce accidents. And also, the information informs teams on how their business is performing. And that really, I mean, that's what makes life fun, is when you actually know that what you did yesterday really works. The second step is you produce regulatory information digitally through onboard diagnosis systems. And this just reverses the whole process. Instead of complaining to the IMO about all the information they want, you actually deluge them with information, and there's a good chance they might come up with much better regulations because they've got something to look at, you know. And finally, we develop wide area networks to support through transport systems and the sorts of things that the container industry has been trying to do for years. We bring to everyone together. Well, just one very little example of how this can help you financially, because it's numbers in the end. This is actually from the presentation I gave 5 years ago, but it's an interesting little example. I didn't have another one to hand. It's a truck fleet, and it's an analysis done by GE Capital Solutions, and on this truck, they analysed 124 truck jobs, and they cost $61,000. That was the total cost to do the 124 jobs. By resequencing the routes, they got that down 18% to $50,000. By reassigning deliveries, they got that down to $44,000, a 28% saving. And by reducing a few routes, they got it down to 30%. So they saved 30% on that just by, you know, looking at the data of what they were doing and finding there was a better way. I mean, these are one-off things, but they nevertheless reoccur every time you go to business. So finally, back to the team issue. They really are the smart part. It's people that are the smart part of this whole process, and they need to work together. On the ships, the people on the ships can communicate. We have the cloud, we have company systems, we have the ship teams who are constantly communicating with the people in the office, the shore teams who are managing the business, and the systems analysts who are supporting the whole thing and making sure that the technology is constantly improving. This is stuff that you don't do it all once and then sit back. Every day you're busy improving it. And of course, you need the technical teams who talk the language of the people on the ships. And so the whole thing is one big happy family, we hope. Well, that'll be the day, eh? And we have our stakeholder networks. The cargo owners are part of this whole business because they're part of the information chain, and the ports through transport, and the shipbuilders and equipment suppliers. This is great stuff. So, conclusion: smart shipping's a team game, not a solo marathon. Look for, in your investments, look for strategy, leadership, and a team who can put the digital ball in the net again and again and again and again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Martin, thank you very much for, again, delivering a tremendous presentation. Your insight is unique. So thank you very much. This has been a great introduction to our second day and to the theme of technology and smart shipping. Thank you again for being with us today.
Nicholas, thank you so much for having me along. I've really enjoyed it, and have a great conference.
Thank you.